Good morning, my name is Benjamin Moeller. I'm a paleontologist, and for the time being anyway, Trailer Park Jesus impersonator. Today is the final day that we're out here on the Menifee expedition here in northwestern New Mexico, so I thought I'd give kind of an overview of what the team has accomplished in the last week and a half. But first I'm going to give a little bit of extra context. So, most people are aware that around 66 million years ago, an asteroid impacted the planet Earth, and Baja blasted the dinosaurs into extinction. The animals that lived in North America around the time that this happened are a cast of characters that everyone is familiar with from childhood. We're talking about Tyrannosaurus rex, Triceratops, Edmontosaurus, Ankylosaurus, Pachycephalosaurus, all of these different things. But what's less commonly known about both in the public sphere and on the scientific side are the creatures that preceded the end of the age of the dinosaurs. So that time period that comes right at the end of the Cretaceous period is called the Maastrichtian stage. And what we're looking at here in the Menifee Formation, which is a unit of rock that is between 84 million years old and 78.5 million years old, is something called the Campanian stage. So if you think of the Maastrichtian as like, you know, this cinematic finale to the story of the age of dinosaurs, the Mesozoic era, the Campanian is what sets up this final chapter in that story. And the animals that we're finding here are familiar but also distinct. So instead of Tyrannosaurus rex, we have the Tyrannosaurid Dynamoterror, which would have been fairly similar in size and shape and behavior, but is just a little bit smaller. And in a similar vein, we don't have Triceratops, but we do have a smaller ceratopsian called Menepheceratops. We don't have Edmontosaurus, but we have the Hadrosaur ornatops. And we don't have Ankylosaurus, but we have the smaller Ankylosaurian Invictarx. So this ecosystem, if you picture it in your head, is going to be somewhat familiar, but there's a couple of key differences. And one of them is that in the Campanian stage, much of North America, the middle part of North America, I should say, was covered by an epeiric seaway called the Western Interior. So sea levels were very, very high at this time of the Cretaceous. They were higher a little bit earlier, but still quite high in the Campanian. And this caused a flooding of the North American continent. So there's this huge body of water around kind of the plains states and the Midwest and up into Canada, where we find fossils of sharks and all other kinds of sea-living creatures. And here in New Mexico, which is a landlocked state stereotyped by, you know, the desert cinematography of shows like Breaking Bad and, you know, spaghetti westerns, was actually coastal territories that kind of butted up with the beaches and then the Western Interior Seaway. So when you think of the Menifee Formation, you should actually think of something similar to like the swamps of Louisiana, you know, Baton Rouge or the Everglades. And in that vein, some of the other animals that you find in the Menifee Formation are turtles and crocodilians. And so those are the main focuses, the personal research focuses of the three principal investigators on this project. So myself, I focus on crocs, and then Dr. Heather Smith and Brent Adrian are experts in turtles. And so our combined goal is not just to learn more about the dinosaurs, and I've been participating in the Menifee expedition since it started in 2011, so I've learned a lot about the dinosaurs, and I've helped play a role in the naming of three of the ones that I went over earlier. You know, I helped to dig out Dynamoterror and Invictarx and Ornatops, as well as some other dinosaurs that haven't been named yet, partly because they're not super complete, but also because there's kind of a lag. You find fossils, and it takes a little bit of time to clean them and prepare them and study them and get them ready for publication. And as far as publications go, I'm an early career researcher. I don't have that many out. But the first paper that I put out personally as a primary author, so I was the one primarily responsible for bringing the project from start to finish, was the first description of Deinosuchus fossils from the Menifee Formation. So Deinosuchus is an animal that you find throughout North America in the Campanian, and it's an enormous alligatoid. So it's closely related to the ancestors of alligator. It looked a little bit different in that instead of having kind of a triangular snout, it was actually rather long, kind of like a boogie board. Oh, and it was also much, much bigger. We're talking about an animal that could have been, at most, somewhere between 30 and 40 feet long. But here in the Menifee Formation, we don't just have Deinosuchus. We also have a smaller alligatoroid called Brachycampsa, which some people believe may be related to the earliest ancestors of Cayman. And one of the things that I've helped discover as participating in this is that there's actually even more crocs. And I'm hoping to have a paper out, hopefully later this year, maybe early next year, kind of describing the whole ecosystem of the different crocs. And Heather and Brent are really focused on describing all of the different turtles. So if you think 3 different types of crocs, I just kind of gave it away there. I think we have at least 3 types of crocs living in the Menifee Formation. And if you think that sounds like a lot, you should hear about how many turtles it turns out that we have out here. I'm not going to say the number because it's actually increased while just in the last week as far as the number of turtle species that we think are here. But we have everything from, you know, kind of soft-shell turtles that would be familiar with people who live in the Everglades in Florida, but also bigger versions of those that live in deep channels and not just rivers and streams, all the way up to really unusual herbivorous land-inhabiting turtles as well. So we have this really interesting, rich ecosystem of reptiles. But that still isn't everything, because in this environment, we also would have had mammals, which from the Menifee Formation we still don't know very much about. You would expect to find lizards, snakes, salamanders, snails, clams, all kinds of different things. Pterosaurs, birds potentially, as well as a rich ecosystem of plants, including the recently evolved angiosperms. So flower and fruit producing plants had only just kind of recently come on the stage. They evolved earlier in the Mesozoic, but they're really exploding in the Campanian. And so when we're out here, we're also looking at the petrified wood and the tree stumps to learn more about what kind of plants were around at the time. And as it turns out, when we go from different places in the Menifee Formation where we're permitted to collect, we think they represent different environments, and the trees kind of vary. So in some areas we're finding more palm trees, and in other areas we're finding more stuff like cypress. So those give indications of different kind of environments. And here in the rocks that we find, it varies from stuff like sandstone, mudstone, and these humate coal beds. And in the coal beds we find amber, which is petrified tree sap. And there's potentially a lot actually that we can learn from the amber itself. So part of what we've done over this week is collect a ton of amber, that hopefully sometime soon we'll be able to share, you know, what we've been able to learn from that. If, say, pollen grains were stuck in it, maybe small insects, maybe there's something about the chemistry of this amber that's able to elucidate stuff about the environment, the ecosystem. And so what the crew has been focused on, in addition to discovering new material of all different kinds of things, we've had more turtles, more crocodilians, more dinosaurs. I'm really excited about the dinosaur material because I'm going to get a chance to actually prepare it myself and kind of learn that process. I've been in paleontology for a long time, 16, 17 years now, but I don't have a lot of experience in the preparation part, mostly in the, you know, finding, collecting, and then researching later. So this is still really enlightening for me. There's a good reason that all these years later, after 2011 now to 2024, I'm still involved with coming out here into this area. And part of that is just because it's a really enriching activity, and this landscape is really special to me, and it's really special to everyone who gets a chance to come out here. So the last thing that I'm going to say, obviously, is a huge thank you to the volunteers, huge thank you to Brent and Heather, huge thank you to my dad who drove this RV up here so that we can have a place with air conditioning at the end of the day. And a huge thank you to you, of course, you guys who... if you're watching this on Patreon, obviously you support me in that way. If you're watching it for free on YouTube at the end of the summer, I appreciate you guys watching this stuff. If you're interested in seeing the expedition live, quote unquote, so at the end of the day, you know, I film our activities during the day and then upload a video at the end of the day. If you're interested in seeing the video produced that day, as it happens, you can go to patreon.com/ptpaleo and sign up as an expedition donor. It only costs $12 a month, and you get to not only support me and help me get out here to do this kind of research, but you also get to see all the different articles that I write, all the Q&As that I produce, and videos of me doing this stuff in the field. So if you're interested in paleontology, or you're a parent or teacher with a student or child who's interested in paleontology, I would advise that you check that out. And if any of what I've been talking about sounds interesting, go rewind and watch the rest of the expedition so you can see the whole process unfold. So that's all that I'm going to say. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.